Alright guys, welcome back to Why You Suck, where I try and save you the time of learning lessons the hard way by telling you the things you're probably doing wrong, because I was when I started my business. Today, we're going to be talking about buy once, cry once. Why you should spend the money, if you can, to buy the better version or the good version of a tool you're looking for, instead of limping along with one cheap thing after another. Let's go. So the most obvious example of this is going to be the tools you use in your day-to-day life, hand tools, drills, etc. There's an argument to be made there over buying cheaper ones and replacing them regularly as needed versus investing in something that might be more tool than you need. For smaller, sub couple $100 tools, I think that's a perfectly valid argument for you to have your own opinion on. When it comes to the big stuff that makes your business function, I'm firmly in the buy once, cry once camp. You look at the tools around here that make the plasma table work, and that's pretty obvious. The HTP Microcut 875 SC was provided by HTP. I'll have a review here in the cards, but it was exactly the type of machine I was looking at. I was going down to something like this, or maybe a Hypertherm 45 or 65. For what I do, literally 99% of the sheets we cut are between 10 gauge and 20 gauge steel, easy. A 30 amp plasma cutter could handle those no problem at the speeds this table will run at. So I really can't put a 45 amp machine totally to its paces in my normal use. But I knew in the back of my mind that eventually I was going to need to cut 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch for a job. I didn't know when, but I knew having the opportunity would mean selling a job eventually that would make this sort of machine worth it. That's happened to me. That's this job. We'll go over it. The same sort of thing's going on when you look at air compressors. We've got a massive Ingersoll Rand unit here, 80 gallon, 7.5 horse, 2-stage compressor, 240 split phase, kind of everything you could want in it. Automatic drain, intercoolers between the stages and after the second stage. I love this machine, and it's kept up flawlessly with what I need to do. It also runs our air tools. We can use air tools while cutting. Perfect. Prior to putting this compressor to work, what we were doing was actually using two 1.5 horse 120 volt air compressors ganged together. It works. It's terrible, but it works. And I was happy to use those to save up the money to make a purchase like this make sense for me. Likewise with welders. I have this HTP ProPulse 220. I've got a card here. You can see how I got it. It's not entirely a sponsored thing, and I know this sounds a lot like an HTP video, but they don't have any part in this. I just use a lot of their products because they're good products and they're supporting what we're doing here at the shop. Check them out in the link down in the description. The ProPulse 220 MTS is a beast of a machine, way more welder than I need for all the 10, 12, 14 gauge for welding together most of the time. But this project's going to show you that having it around, having that capacity to grow into, totally worth it. The profit on this project alone would have almost paid for the ProPulse 220 MTS or the Microcut 875 all by themselves. It would have more than covered the difference in cost between a cheaper unit and this one in either case. In fact, I've actually mentioned it before. I started my business and ran for the first 1.5 years, maybe 2 years, off of this little Millermatic 130. You can get by with little machines, but I constantly ran into limitations and had to turn jobs down with this guy before I upgraded. Once I needed a little bit more power, I didn't bite the bullet. I didn't spend the money to buy a machine that would do everything I needed to. I bought one of those green machines from the company that loves to spam my comments, and it was all right for a while, but I started to run into issues, mostly with the poor quality of all the accessories that come with it. So eventually I had to upgrade. So that was when I upgraded to the HTP ProPulse 200, which we still use all the time when we need 2 people running a welder. So what's the takeaway from all of this? We've got this job right now using some 3/8 plate, and I would not have been able to do this job with any of the machines I owned before the ProPulse 200. you know, it's one of those, I would have had to turn this down. And I understand that it's hard early on to spend the money, but the reality is if you don't buy the tool that lets you grow into it, the tool limits you where you already are. So if you guys can, again, I understand it's a cost. There have been some times where it's been a tight month because I needed to upgrade something. Buy once, cry once. Let's jump through how we put this project together right quick.
With everything cut apart, we jumped into wire brushing just like normal, clean all the parts up. Got a fair amount of dross, but that's mostly because I do not have feeds and speeds set up because I don't cut a lot of 3/8 plate. The pieces were then welded together. This is kind of a simple job. It's a post with a bottom plate. It's going to have a bucket that'll be welded on site once the post is cut to the correct height. Those buckets were also made out of 3/8 plate because that's what the customer wanted. We made a little buck to get the correct spacing between all of those plates and then just set to welding them together. It was a simple construction. I mean, effectively we're building C-channel, but in this T shape. Make sure everything's square and just move right through it. This is where a welder that could keep up with the work we were doing really shined. We needed to, you know, I don't want to have to take a bunch of passes at this. I want to be able to turn that machine up into near spray arc settings and just lay into it. You can see we got some pretty arc shots there. I know that my settings aren't perfect here. You see me taking a second pass. I don't do a lot of 3/8 plate, so there was a little bit of dialing the machine in, but that's why it's nice to have good machines. You'll actually see in some shots that I've got the ProPulse 200 and the 220 up on the table. I keep my 200 set up with 035 wire and my 220 set up with 030, and that lets me, you know, lay more into a weld if I need to jump over to the 200, or I can, you know, 030 is a little bit better for smaller, thinner material, so I can do that with the 220 without having to change the machine over, just have them both set up opposite ends of the table. And then if we need to get to something that's in a weird position, I can jump on the other machine and just adjust it regardless of which wire's on it. These pieces all get welded out, cleaned up. They're hot, so we dunk them in water. And then we're going to jump over to actually doing the assembly. The whole idea here is make sure that everything's nice and square and laid out after we get everything welded. We'll clean up the table. I really like to get all the BBs off the table whenever I can if we're going to do layup, because you don't want a piece rocking around on one little speck of junk that's in the way. Then using some spacers, these are 8-inch plates, so the tubes are 2 inches. That means we need 3 inches all around. I happen to have some 1-inch by 3-inch rectangular tube. We'll lay that out, set the posts on it, and then line our plates up and get everything nice and square, welded out. Again, we're jumping over to the 220 that's got 030 wire in it here, so I can lay a good weld without overheating the bottom of those tubes and risking blowing through them. I've got a little modified square there, the thing that you see purple. I get questions about that a lot. It's a tool that lets you square things up around a flange. I got mine on eBay. I don't have a link to them, but you can pick one up.
All right, guys, there you go. These are posts 11 and 12 with corresponding buckets of a much bigger project. We delivered most of it a couple weeks ago. It's a simple project, not much to it, but something you just would not be able to do without a machine that'll keep up with you. I don't know about you, but personally, I know I've spent about $1,500 on welding machines that cannot keep up with this. And if I spent the money, the little bit extra back in the day, I would have been able to. So I understand the economic juggling act you got to do there to make it make sense for you. If it does, I hope you will embrace that buy once, cry once, try and accelerate, amplify your growth, and get to somewhere bigger and better faster than you otherwise would have. Really, the most important thing is, if possible, don't let a piece of equipment limit you. You want you, your skills and your training and your natural talent to be your limitations, because those are something that you can work on. Your equipment is something you've already bought. Yeah, you could resell it, but it's kind of money down the drain if you buy something that isn't going to be good enough for the job. I know I've said it. I understand the juggling act. I'm not trying to tell you guys to go into debt to buy equipment. But you know, the whole point of this series is for me to try and give you a little bit of an insight into the experiences I've had, so maybe you can leapfrog a couple of the stumbling blocks that tripped me up. Until next time, guys, don't suck.